Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Breakfast Special.
Money FM 89.3. Thanks for joining us on Breakfast Special. And today, our conversation on AI continues. Artificial intelligence is on almost every board's agenda these days, and many in Asia call it a top priority. But here's the catch. While investment is pouring in, real business impact is harder to pin down. And often the stumbling block isn't the technology itself, it's finding the right leaders to actually make AI work. So why is there still this gap between ambition and outcomes? What kind of leadership do companies really need to bridge this gap? And how might that answer look different in Southeast Asia's unique business landscape? To help us unpack all of this, we're joined by Burcu Bicakci, partner at Egon Zehnder and a core member of the firm's global technology and AI practice. Burcu, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Audrey. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. So let's set the stage here. You work closely with boards and tech leaders around the world. So from your vantage point, what's the mood right now when it comes to AI adoption? Is it mostly excitement? Is it frustration or a bit of cautious optimism, you think?
Well, I think mostly excitement. There's a lot of opportunities discussed in the boards and in the senior leadership teams of companies. And of course, it comes with a bit of a caution, with a bit of a observation around the risks that are coming with AI. But actually, everyone is quite excited about what it has to promise to the business world and how it disrupts the way businesses get done, the processes are reshaped. So I actually feel much more excitement and opportunity than anything else.
Okay, so excitement, number one on the list. But we often hear that boards in Asia, they do list AI as a top priority, but many organizations still struggle to see some real return. So why is this gap between ambition and results? How did it become so widespread?
Well, I think it's around the world, but let's for a minute focus in Asia. And I think, first of all, it's still something new, right? It's still maturing. It's still coming to the lives of every single company and to every corner of a company. It started as a wow impact end of 22 when ChatGPT kicked in. And then for the last 3 years now, companies have been ramping up and they have come to different maturity levels. And as you rightly stated, there has been a very recent study from MIT, which also says 95% of the businesses are not reporting a clear return of investment so far in AI. And there are different theses around why is this happening. And one of them is about the leadership blind spot, right? So how do organizations implement AI? How leadership embraces AI and brings it to the lives of the way business gets done. So this is probably what we're going to talk today.
Yeah.
And in Asia, particularly, nature of the business, complicated conglomerates, GLCs, I think this is also making the task not so easy as compared to the peers in the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point. It's not just about ambition. It's about how companies approach the problem. And when it comes to the leadership pitfalls, what are some of the most common mistakes you see companies making when it comes to identifying the kind of leadership they actually need to drive AI?
Yeah, and I think mistake is a very strong word because we're actually observing that everybody is trying and learning at this stage, right? So companies are trying different ways to solve this problem. I think one of the things that we see as a blind spot is it's still in some organizations seen as a technology topic or a topic that one or two executives can lead and actually transform a company in terms of its AI strategy. And I think this is what we're observing most of the cases, right? So if it is actually concentrated in a few executives or a single leader called, let's say, AI leader of an organization, it's generally not creating a lot of impact. We actually tend to advise a lot that this needs to be embraced by many leaders in the organization. So it's actually something that needs to be across the board rather than having as a responsibility of one or two leaders.
Okay, so Egon Zehnder's own CIO survey shows 60% of Asian boards prioritize AI, but scaling remains the major hurdle. So in your view, what are the key factors holding companies back from scaling effectively?
Yeah, spot on. Actually, many boards or many CEOs keep on telling us that they have many hundreds of use cases, that they have proof of concepts on AI already. But scale, of course, drives return of investment, right? So if you just test it in a department for a couple of times, it's actually not creating the return of investment. Mm-hmm. So most of the cases, when you think about an organization that just starts testing it in a lab environment, lab in the sense of if that one function, a few people are having an analogy of a lab, to grow it, to deploy it in an organization, you need more people to own it and run with it. So what we see is generally the rest of the organization, when the topic is introduced, when the initiative is brought to their use, they are not immediately jumping on it, or they are not immediately willing to take the change management aspect of it, which means actually the rest of the organization is not following, and it just becomes a lab project.
Yeah.
And then it simply does not create the value that it's expected to create in the first place. So that's what we observe mostly. But then there are also other reasons, such as currently, for example, technically the models are not immediately learning from experience. So it has to start learn. Some technology limitations as well. But just for the purpose of today's conversation, focusing on the organization aspect, leadership aspect, we actually observe that the scale comes with adoption. And that's actually a change management across the organization, not in a particular functional area.
Right. Okay. So I want to dive into the leadership archetypes, which I find so interesting. Your research identifies 3 leadership archetypes: the builder, the transformer, and the shaper. So could you give us a sense of what each of these profiles brings to the table?
2 years ago, Audrey, we have actually done this research about looking at what kind of talents is out there. So we've identified actually in the world, we have 3 archetypes: shapers, builders, and transformers. So when we talk about shapers, it's actually people with a big brain thinking about the future of AI, how AI disrupts the world, the business, the politics, the economy, the society, right? So it's actually a bit of a macro way of looking at how is AI disrupting the world. And shapers are generally people that we actually talk with organizations as these would be best fit for your boards, because this is where you ask the most strategic, compelling questions for thinking about your future. And then we see a group of people where we call AI builders, who are coming from very technical roots. They are quant people, mostly with PhD degrees, and we see them as people who are building the AI proprietary tools, so models, and really looking at how AI can serve a business, but also an industry's purpose. These are generally typified with chief scientists in our organization, very research focused. They have a ton of data scientists behind them, and they actually work on very important disruptive projects. And then the vast majority of the talent that we see out there, and which I see a lot in Southeast Asia, is about AI transformers, which we believe is the most critical, because these people speak the language between technology and business. And they are the ones who are translating all these technology products, or, all the initiatives over to what does it mean for the businesses? How does it create value for the businesses?
Yeah.
And then actually those are the ones thinking about scaling it. What does it mean for the broader organization? And then taking it further. So it's actually really important to think about transformers as the most important talent today in the world.
Interesting, because I think people's first thoughts, AI roles are very technical roles, but it goes way beyond that. So what non-technical qualities are you seeing as essential for AI leaders today if they want to drive results across the organization?
So it comes down to leadership competencies at the end of the day, because this is a change management and transformative drive that we're talking about when it comes to adopting AI and making value out of it. So what we're observing is, especially in the transformer segment that I'm talking about, and that's most relevant for most of the businesses that we're talking about today, well, change management comes as one of the most important skills that we're looking at. But when we talk about change management, again, change in the lens of AI. How do you bring AI to the life of yourself, but at the same time your colleagues, your counterparts, your leadership, or your subordinates, right? So that's one aspect. The other piece of skill that we're really finding is important is how do you collaborate and influence? Because AI is not something that you do top down. It's about influencing. You need to create the picture of the future. You need to get a followership in the organization. You need to have sponsorships in the organization and convince the organization to invest. So it's all about influencing and collaborating cross-departmental. Another aspect which we think is strategic orientation. How does your strategy, your functions or your company's strategy change in the lens of AI is a very important topic. Last but not least, especially thinking about people leadership and organizational leadership, it's also a very important skill because today, if you're managing an organization, everyone, take a CFO, take a CHRO, take a chief legal officer, no matter which role you're doing in an organization, you need to be thinking about what should my workforce look like a year from now, 18 months from now, because this thing is coming, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have AI skills in your organization today, then what do you do tomorrow to make sure that your organization gets up to speed, either by hiring or grooming your internal talent? So those are really leadership competencies that makes a difference in adoption of AI today.
All right. So being forward-looking is critical. And here in Southeast Asia, the business context is quite unique. We have a lot of family-owned conglomerates to government-linked companies as well. How does the AI leadership challenge in Southeast Asia differ from other regions?
So the nature of business in Southeast Asia, also, of course, Southeast Asia is very different from market to market. But as you rightly said, we have very complex family businesses, conglomerates, GLCs, and I think all of these have their natural complexity when it comes to influencing the organization as an overall and making something work. AI is a topic today, but anything as a change, anything that you want to drive in these complicated structures requires a bit more effort, a bit more influencing skills, and a bit more charm into the organization, if you want. So when it comes to AI, what we're observing is, imagine you have a complex conglomerate which has all sorts of businesses and different maturity levels of AI. It could be banking, it could be technology like telecoms, it could also be industrial companies under one conglomerate, or as well as things like your manufacturing entities, right? All of these come together as a conglomerate. And now if you would be an AI leader who is trying to drive that change in a conglomerate like that, you need to tailor strategies for different maturity levels of organization. So if you go to a financial services institution, it's generally a bit more of a pioneer, while an industrial company might be pretty much lagging, right? So what is the strategy like in one over the other is going to be quite different. So therefore, one AI leader, let's say AI driver in the organization, needs to be very much tailoring the approach based on where that particular organization unit in the conglomerate is. And that is actually meaning that you need to shift your styles, shift your sponsorship, shift your way of talking. You need to be geeky on one environment while you need to be very friendly and warm on the other. So it's actually requiring a lot of people skills, Audrey.
Yeah.
It's not a simple matter.
Of course. And you also have to balance the pressure and reality, right? You talked about tailoring your approaches, but boards everywhere feel pressure to do something with AI, right? How should they balance that pressure with the reality check of what's actually useful for their business?
Well, I think that's the beauty of the boards, right? That's why you have very experienced business executives who are also trying to get up to speed with AI skills, technology skills as we talk today. So our survey, which is very recent, right? So we've recently done a survey. It has shown that a very important challenge is for boards and senior leaders to get up to speed with what's possible and what are the risks of changing world in the context of AI. So when you think about the pressures, the opportunities, and actually the excitement and even the fear of missing out, right? All of that come together as a bit of a complexity for the boards of today. So, well, what should they do, right? So I think the ideation to get up to speed with what's happening and being aware of all the trends in their fellow partners in other boards, I think these are the things that the board members can do today to stay up to date, but at the same time think about the realities of their own business. What does it mean for their own context? Actually, last week we had a board breakfast. It was such a fruitful discussion, and we've seen industries starting from defense to education and then to manufacturing kind of companies. And overall, the conversation is converging into, yes, this is a disrupting power, but let's stay back for a minute and think about what does it mean for my context. And then everybody's, again, coming back to where we started, very excited about the opportunity.
All right. Well, AI leadership isn't just about technical know-how. It's about vision, about transformation, and knowing how to bring people along on the journey. Big thanks to Burcu Bicakci, who has joined us as partner at Egon Zehnder. Thank you so much for all of your time and insights today.
Thank you very much, Audrey.
Thank you. Keep it here, Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.